She looked me straight in the eye and said, "You'll never see a dime of that college fund again." Her voice was flat, almost bored, like she was commenting on the weather. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. But the way she held my gaze, daring me to react, made it clear she meant every word. I spent the next week plotting the biggest comeback of my life, and she never saw it coming. The moment I realized what she'd done, everything I'd worked for felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The betrayal itself wasn't loud or dramatic. It happened quietly, like a knife slipped between the ribs of my trust. I'd logged into my bank account, expecting to see the number I'd worked so hard to build. Instead, the balance was almost gone. I refreshed the page, hoping it was a glitch, but nothing changed. That sinking feeling in my chest was new, but the shock was unmistakable. Between babysitting gigs, odd summer jobs, and every birthday card, I'd poured every spare cent into that fund. My parents chipped in what they could, even when money was tight. College wasn't just some vague dream. It was the plan, the thing that got me through long shifts and weekends when I wanted to spend instead of save. The idea was always the same. One day, I'd walk onto a campus and know it was all worth it. Now, that future felt like it had been wiped out in a single, silent moment. The truth came out almost by accident. I was in the hallway, passing by the guest room, when I heard my aunt's voice through the door. She was on the phone, her words low but clear. I needed a new start, so I used that money. It's not like they needed it right now. The words hit me harder than seeing the empty account. In that instant, I knew this wasn't a mistake or some outside scam. It was personal. It's one thing to lose money to a stranger. It's another to realize someone you trusted, someone who'd watched you save and struggle, had taken it for themselves. My aunt didn't just empty the fund. She spent it on things she wanted. There was a vacation I'd never heard about, spa trips and new clothes. She acted like she was entitled to it, and when confronted, she barely flinched. My parents were furious, demanding answers, but she just shrugged and said she'd pay it back, eventually. Hearing that, knowing my years of work had gone to luxury hotels and impulse buys, made the whole thing feel even more impossible to accept. That night, I realized tears and threats wouldn't fix this. I needed proof, and I needed a plan. Sleep was out of the question. My mind kept circling back to every detail, every conversation, looking for something I could use. The law was expensive and slow. Reasoning with her was pointless. She acted untouchable, like nothing and no one could hold her accountable. I didn't want to be powerless. If I let this go, I'd be the one left with nothing, while she moved on without a second thought. I started writing everything down. Dates, amounts, what I'd overheard, anything that might help me make my case. It felt desperate, but it was all I had. By the next morning, my anger had settled into something colder. I wasn't sure what the next step would be, but I knew I couldn't let her walk away with everything I'd built. Something had to change, and if I wanted justice, I'd have to fight for it myself. Coming up with a plan wasn't easy. I sat in my room that night, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of it all. I didn't know where to start, and the idea of trying to get stolen money back seemed almost impossible. I didn't have money for a lawyer, and even if I did, I had no idea who to call. Still, letting her get away with it wasn't an option. The first move was obvious, even if it made my stomach churn. I had to confront her. During a family dinner, I caught her alone in the kitchen. "You stole from me," I said, keeping my voice low so it wouldn't carry. She froze for a second, then gave me that fake smile and waved her hand like I was being ridiculous. "Don't be dramatic," she said, her tone flat. When I pressed, asking when she'd pay me back, she just rolled her eyes and muttered, "I'll get to it eventually." She didn't even try to hide her indifference. After that, I realized I'd need more than words. I started digging. I spent hours going through every bank statement and transaction I could find, looking for something solid. There were so many charges, designer handbags, hotels, jewelry, that it made my chest tighten. But what I needed was proof that she'd taken my money, not just spent it. That's when I found it. Buried in the statements was a withdrawal, a huge chunk, moved straight from my college fund into her account. No attempt to cover it up. It was right there, clear as day. That one line on the statement felt like a crack in her armor. I took screenshots, printed copies, and added them to a folder with messages where she dismissed my concerns. The evidence was piling up. I knew I couldn't handle this alone, so I reached out to a family friend who worked in finance. I explained what I'd found and asked for advice. They listened, then quietly connected me with someone who understood how these things worked. With their help, I started building my case, organizing the documents, writing down everything I remembered, and making sure I had every detail in order. The process was draining. I had to act normal around her, keep up appearances for the rest of the family, and pretend nothing was wrong. At night, I'd go over my notes, double-check everything, and try to figure out what my next step should be. Every time doubt crept in, I'd look at that withdrawal and remind myself why I was doing this. With my evidence assembled and my allies in place, I was ready to draw her into a trap she'd never suspect. The pieces were set, and all that was left was to see how she'd react when the truth finally closed in. I'll never forget the look on her face when she realized the truth was out. The confidence she always wore, the little smirks and dismissive shrugs, all vanished in a heartbeat. Getting to that point took persistence I didn't know I had. There were moments I wanted to walk away, but I kept going, knowing I owed it to myself. Once I had all the evidence in order, I showed it to my parents. They'd been angry before, but seeing the proof in black and white, withdrawals, receipts, even a few messages where she admitted to using the money, made everything real. Their support changed the dynamic. With them behind me, I set up a family meeting. We didn't warn her. I wanted her to walk in with her guard down. She entered the living room without a hint of worry, her footsteps heavy on the floorboards. She tossed her phone onto the couch, barely glancing up as she asked, "What's this about?" and dropped into a chair like she had better things to do. I handed her the folder and waited. At first, she didn't bother to look. She just smirked, like it was all some joke. But as she flipped through the pages, her smirk faded in seconds once she saw the receipts. The room went dead silent. The denial came quick, a short, awkward laugh. "You really think this proves anything?" she said, but her voice was shaky. I kept quiet, letting the silence stretch. Then she tried to spin it. "I was just borrowing it. I didn't think you needed everything right away." Her excuses sounded thinner with each word. My parents didn't hold back. They called her out for the lies, for thinking she could get away with it. She tried to defend herself, but the evidence was too clear. There was nothing left to hide behind. The anger drained out of her and she just sat there, staring down at the folder. Watching her slump into that chair, I felt this strange mix of vindication and sorrow, because I'd won, but at what cost? There was no dramatic shouting, just the heavy quiet of someone realizing they'd finally been caught. She agreed to pay back what she could, though it would take time. The rest of the family kept their distance after that. Her reputation was in pieces, and she knew it. The aftermath was messy. She paid back a portion of the money, but the trust was gone for good. Legal action hung in the air, but with enough restitution, we let it go. I had what mattered most, proof that I could stand up for myself. Still, the whole thing left a mark I couldn't ignore. Looking back, I understand now that this was about more than money or even justice. It was about reclaiming something bigger, my sense of control, my future. That first screenshot of my empty bank account stuck with me. What looked like a dead end became the place I decided to take action. I realized I didn't have to accept what happened. I could demand accountability and take steps to set things right. If you're facing something similar, remember, you don't have to stay silent. It's possible to stand up for yourself and reclaim what's yours. If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, hit subscribe, because here, we go beyond the drama and into the comeback story.